Hello and welcome to Podcraft, the show where we most recently have been taking some statements that you might hear out there in the wild in podcast land and just figuring out whether we agree or disagree with them. It's a new format that's been working really well with us, and I'm delighted to be joined again by Jacob. How are you doing today, Jacob?
Hello, thanks for having me back. I'm really well. It's sunny in Scotland. There are people on the way to the moon, and I don't think it could be a better day.
Those are the two criteria for better days.
Yes.
All right, let's get straight into it. We've got more of these to go through. I'm excited to see what we pull out of the old digital top hat this week. I made you go first last week, Jacob, so I'll go first this week if you don't mind. And we will start with the statement, ads ruin listener trust. Do you agree or disagree with that?
No, I don't think so, because I think that most listeners do intuitively know and are used to, just because of how many podcasts do ads now, that it's a necessary part of creating a podcast and paying for the bills, especially when they get bigger. I think, we've kind of hard to listen to a podcast that doesn't have ads these days unless it's quite small, and even then they've probably got some sort of affiliate deal or something that they've got their hands on. So no, I don't think it breaks trust. I would say though that the product or the company that you're advertising, make the right choice there, because you could lose trust, especially if it's host read and you're sort of feels like you're kind of like personally vouching for it. I think you do have to be picky about what it is that you're going to put your name to. But I think there's probably a little bit more leeway when it's dynamically inserted. You know, you've got a little bit of cover in saying that I didn't necessarily know that was going to go in there for your region or whatever. So no, I wouldn't agree with that, I don't think.
Yeah, I would disagree with this statement broadly too. And I think for all the points that you've made, there is obvious nuance that, like, there are examples that this could hold up when it's just blatantly the wrong ad for the content or the presenter. You know, if I'm running the vegan podcast and suddenly I've got a beef box as the sponsor, you know, in those extreme examples, it might get a 3 months of beef box. But yeah, that's obviously going to damage the presenter's trust. But these are very extreme examples. What about, though, just digging into it a wee bit more, what about like volume of ads? Do you think that there is a tipping point where, I mean, maybe this isn't necessarily just about trust, it's more about just like wearing the listener down and making them sick of you, you know, if it's just an ad every I'm not going to put a time frame on it, but I think we've all heard that one show where it's just reached that tipping point and you're thinking, is this another ad, really? So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can definitely go over the top. And it can just get really, really annoying when it's not predictable. I mean, there's certain shows that I'll listen to, like even some of the Rest Is family have a good amount of ads in them these days, but I know that they're usually about 50-second long slots, and I can just, even if I'm in the shower and I'm listening to my podcast, I'm going to say, Siri, skip 50 seconds, and I know I'm going to get back to the content. So I think, yeah, you can have too much, and also if you make it too unpredictable as well, it can get quite annoying. I mean, there's quite mindful ways to do ads. Like there's a podcast I listen to called the Blind Boy Podcast. And he has this habit of doing what he calls an ocarina pause. So he'll like sort of sandwich an ad with, he'll pick up this little ocarina and give it a and before and after. And it's like, I don't know, it feels like I'm going to hand you off to do the thing now, and then I'm going to be back. And it feels, I don't know, it feels less kind of abrupt. It feels a little bit more like he's recognizing that we're going to interrupt the show here. I think I do like that. Some people don't seem to like that sort of approach of saying, I can't remember where I read this, but there were some strong opinions on it. I don't like it when the hosts tell you, we're going to go on a break now and there's going to be ads and then we're going to come back. Some people don't seem to like that. I actually do quite like that. I prefer that to just something quite abrupt. I want some recognition that we're going to stop now and we're going to continue in a bit, because honestly, if I'm in a situation where I want to skip it, it makes it easier for me. Probably shouldn't say that. It's probably not good for anyone, right? Skipping through the ads, but yeah, as a listener, I do. I don't always sit and listen to them.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about the way podcasters typically run ads, like you've got these two main approaches that I could think of. Like, one might be, say I've got 6 30-second ads to run, so I could just do this 3-minute block in the show, or I could like intersperse them throughout the conversation. I think I would prefer the latter. I could cope with 30 seconds now and then rather than the 3-minute block, but that comes with the caveat of, does your show support that? Does the conversation support that break-up style? So like what we're doing now, where we're jumping from topic to topic, that would, because there's natural breaks. Whereas if we were just having a very deep discussion about one thing and there was no real natural pauses in there, it would feel a bit off just to have these little ads interspersed. So again, there's nuance to this from what I could kind of see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, ads are always annoying. It's just, how do you make them as feel as little annoying as possible is the game. Some people make an effort with it, some hosts, and others, like, yeah. I mean, I've definitely listened to some fairly big podcasts that have had words cut off to go into an ad slot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is like, yeah, you need to make a little bit of an effort there. And really not a fan of pre-roll ads that go on for like several minutes, like 2.5 minutes. Like, nah, get in the bin. Not interested. Please don't do that.
And that makes it very easy to skip, because a lot of your listening apps, you could custom set, like on Overcast, for example. I could take a show and just say, custom start this show at 1:30. So some apps, and you're just training, you're inviting your listener to do that. And nobody wins. The person paying you for the ad doesn't win. You don't win long term, because they see they're getting nothing from your sponsorship. Podcasting doesn't win because sponsors begin to see podcasting as a waste of money. So there's all sorts of negatives to that. It's interesting, when we think about our own calls to action in a podcast, and we're all wary of doing anything more than one call to action. But if the money was there, we might run 6 or 7 different ads. And again, I wonder if that short-term thinking is very compelling to take that money early. But if the ads aren't really working just because of the volume of them, then eventually your sponsors are saying, we're not seeing anything from this. We're using these various methods of tracking it and we're just seeing nothing. And that goes back to all the things I say about, sponsors might think your show's not worth it. They might think podcasting's not worth it. So there's a lot of considerations here, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about putting them off podcasting necessarily. Most advertisers will be trying various podcasts. Some will be a good fit, some won't be a good fit. So I wouldn't worry too much about ruining the podcast advertising landscape. Yeah, I wouldn't put that on your shoulders. But yeah, definitely you could ruin it for yourself. Yeah, if you take on too many and you take the wrong ones as well. Like, it really, might be tempted to take something that doesn't feel like a great fit, but they're going to pay you a decent amount. But if it's not a good fit, you're just gonna lose that slot.
Beefbox, good fit.
Beefbox, yeah, for us, I don't know about that. Like, would we do a Beefbox? Would we do a, one of these meal delivery services? Why? I don't know. Like, I guess I think maybe the point of them is that they're meant to be for everyone. But yeah, why would we not take a sponsorship from well-loved podcast editing tool like Alitu? Do you know what I mean? That's a really good fit for us. So, and it's something that might help the listeners. So I don't know, like, you kind of have to evaluate on a opportunity by opportunity basis, I guess. But yeah, definitely makes sense to not just take everything, which is really easy to say when you have no income and someone comes to you and says, I'm going to give you some money, and suddenly all your costs are paid. And like, yeah, you can't really argue with that sort of maths, but further along the road when maybe you've got a few different things to weigh up, it's worth the consideration. So, AI voices will become indistinguishable from real hosts. No time frame on this, just eventually.
I agree from a sound and delivery point of view. Like when you're listening to speech, who knows? I think we're maybe at that stage now where you could hear an AI voice, and if your life came down to it, you maybe wouldn't be able to pick whether it's a human or not. I think over a period of time, over a period of episodes, the tells might be there, unless the person who's created the AI is prepared to blatantly lie, about the AI's background, and that the AI voice is given all sorts of anecdotes and stories about its quote unquote life. Eventually it'll become clear that this is a very human sounding voice that's just conveying information to me versus this is an AI that is pretending to be this, dad of 3 who's ran this marathon or whatever. There's, from a technical point of view, absolutely, but long term, from a honesty and credibility point of view, that's more complex. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. What I will say is that people will most definitely lie, as they always do.
Surely not. Surely people won't lie.
No, it's a very honest and moral world that we live in. But no, I mean, I actually don't think that we are quite there yet. I've done a fair amount of experimentation with this, and not to say that I've tried everything or done the best version of anything, not at all. But I have kind of followed people's experiments who have, and it's just not quite there yet. It is quite uncanny valley, and it is quite scary, but it's not there yet. However, I do agree that on no time frame, eventually they will become absolutely indistinguishable, probably in the next few years. And I think to achieve that, though, it will require a lie, like that right there. I just said like. Do you know what I mean? At some point, yes, it will be indistinguishable, but you're going to have to insert humanisms into the speech that it's reading out. Little weird quirks and, and definitely some filler words and stutters and all this kind of stuff. Because otherwise it's not indistinguishable. So I think to actually achieve that, there is going to have to be a certain level of dishonesty. You're not just reading from a sheet. I guess the one kind of difference, or the one, one place where that might be different is something like news reading or audio books or something where you really are kind of reading from a sheet to a degree. But I think for conversational podcasts, like you're saying, where you're going to need a backstory, you are going to need some quite compelling persona or lie. Otherwise, there's more to a real host than just a convincing voice. Especially over a few episodes, like you say. It's a really good point. So, I mean, it's actually, it's just kind of more complicated question than it first reads. So, I think technically, for sure. And I also don't doubt that people will spin up the lies and the false personas. So, I agree, but I'm uneasy with it for sure.
Yeah. All right. Here's one for you then. One viral clip can change everything.
See, the thing with that is that not all viral platforms are the same. One viral clip on TikTok, the sort of unit economics of followers on TikTok are different. Like, it's a follower is cheaper there, a view is cheaper just by the way that it is. It's all quite transactional. Just because you've got one big clip doesn't mean that you're going to carry any of that over. Like, you see that an awful lot people that do have one viral clip or a few viral clips and that's it, and they've got, they're not carrying on anything from that. But I think that's actually slightly different on some platforms. Like if you had a viral clip on Instagram or YouTube, I think that does carry a little bit more weight and does convert a little bit better to a longer term following. So it's a bit of a cop out answer, but yeah, I think I disagree. Just because it can vary so much platform to platform and what the clip is. That you could have a viral clip that's, I don't know, just
Watch me
something
put
funny.
soup in an air fryer.
Yeah, or just something funny that you saw happening on the street, completely unrelated to what it is that you're actually making content about. I mean, I've had certain bits of content go viral over the years, and it's made absolutely no impact overall to my following or my personal brand or any of these things. So no, I disagree. I mean, a series of viral clips or one viral clip that is like a viral clip from your podcast, that could make a difference because that will get exposure for your podcast as long as you've got a link in there to your podcast and it's very clear where it's coming from and it's related to the content that you're actually making. It's not just a funny blooper or a funny moment. If something of substance about your topic and what it is that you're all about, if that goes viral, yes, that could make a difference. But it really depends on the platform, depends on the clip. Like virality is not a marketing tactic as much as marketers like to push it to be sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would disagree broadly with the statement based on a lot of the things you've said. Not denying there will be exceptions to this, but as much as I don't see viral clips because I've got none of the apps, but I have seen them in the past, and I couldn't tell you honestly who the people behind each one were. You maybe see a clip, and you're right, it could be completely out of context with what that person is actually known for or trying to be known for as well. Platforms, like Instagram, presumably TikTok and that, they're not exactly trying to make it easy for people to leave those apps either and go and, get the full meal elsewhere. So I guess if you're saying, if your viral clip was in the context, that's a completely new word I've just invented. We'll note that down for the Oxford English Dictionary. Within the wider context of your podcast and the other content that you create on that app is around your podcast as well, then I guess one viral clip, I'm really struggling to speak today, people maybe follow you and see a continuation of that content. I guess that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But if it's just this flash in the pan thing, that bears no real relation to anything else, you can't really back it up anywhere else, then it's
totally.
Yeah, it's just a flash of lightning, isn't it? So
absolutely. I don't know if you remember, or even if I shared it in our Slack, but a few years ago there was big solar storm, and I went up to a hill in Edinburgh and took an amazing photo of the aurora over Edinburgh, with the, what is it called, like Scotland's disgrace, the sort of half-finished kind of neoclassical monument, and it looked really cool. There was kind of people standing on the monument, these shadows of people, and it was these big sort of Corinthian-looking pillars, and behind it just this crazy light display. And I took some cracking photos of that, and I posted them on Twitter, and they went uber viral. I think it was something like 60,000-70,000 likes and millions of views. And I ended up getting picked up by newspapers all over the world. I mean, every major news organization was using this photo, and it was the most amazing 3 days. And I never became a professional photographer out of that. Do you know what I mean? It never made any difference whatsoever. Like, if I were a professional photographer and I had a photo like that go viral, I couldn't have asked for a better response ever. There are professional photographers who will charge thousands of dollars for a session who could never hope to have that many views on a photograph that they've taken. But I'm not a photographer. That did absolutely nothing for me. It was completely unrelated to what it is that I actually talk about online. So yeah, just virality does not mean it's going to change anything in your life. It's not going to change anything about your brand. It 100% can be a fun, flash in the pan. Flash in the pan. Flash in the pan. See, we are real. We are not AI because we can't
No,
speak.
we're too real today. Yeah, I remember, this is a long, long time ago now, but I used to have Twitter, and you would, this is going back 2013, 2014. So there was a lot less of the random algorithm stuff in your feed. It was pretty much either stuff, your followers posted or retweeted or that. And sometimes you would see this funny retweet, it was quite a humorous thing. You retweet it yourself, you maybe give the person a wee follow that said it. But then, over the next few weeks, every time they pop up in your feed, you're like, who is that? You couldn't even remember that's where they came from, or it was somebody that posted something funny a few weeks ago. And it turns out they weren't actually that funny. It was just, a nice moment for them, and you just end up binning them. So I just kind of remember that, they had their wee moment. So
yeah, and Twitter's that's always been the way of Twitter. Everyone gets their 30 seconds of fame.
Wee moment,
yeah. Absolutely not a strategy. Virality, definitely not. Nice when it happens, but yeah, it's not necessarily going to change everything. You want it consistency of views and exposure is really what you want. That's what makes the difference. When someone sees not one post but 2 or 3 or 4 and follows you, do you know what I mean? That's the game.
Yeah. Aye, and if you're maybe something does go viral of yours, but everything else you've got there supports it, everything else is in context with it, then
absolutely,
it's a nice bonus rather than something you should necessarily expect. So
definitely.
All right, we've put that to bed then. What's next?
Right, here's one. It's an interesting one. YouTube rewards podcasters more than podcast apps do.
Potentially it does, yeah. If we look at purely financially, you can sell ads on or get money for ads on YouTube. Can you do that anywhere else? Just directly with the app? Not off the top of my head. So,
I wasn't actually thinking financially. I was thinking everything
from
else.
From a growth point of view, yeah.
From a growth point of view, but also an interaction point of view. There's quite a lot of sort of community type features in there. Like if you did get a following on YouTube, it's probably an easier path to kind of hearing from your audience or being able to kind of connect with them in a way. But financially too.
I think it's a very double-edged sword. There's no doubt that YouTube can present to you some very compelling gifts. Look at the discovery algorithm, the opportunity to monetize these analytics, and it's all very tempting. But there's once you take a bite of the apple and suddenly you are coming up with really good content ideas that your existing audience will love, and you reach that dilemma of, but the algorithm's going to hate this, and you have to pick left or right. And suddenly you find yourself a few months later creating thumbnails with very shocked faces, and your titles are in capitals, and so
you become a ring wraith. The Lord of Gifts has bestowed a very interesting and unique ring upon you, and that's it. That's you for eternity.
So there is short-term gains to be had maybe from YouTube, and they'll offer you some very nice rewards potentially, but tread carefully is what I would say, I suppose. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. So I agree with the statement, and I think that's a bit of a problem for free and open podcasting. I think YouTube does reward podcasters more than podcast apps do. But the tricky thing with that is mostly because they don't participate in podcasting the same way that podcast apps do. Podcast apps are kind of restricted to working with what RSS provides you. There's no write system to RSS. You can't store and carry comments and all of these things across your feed onto other apps. And I don't know. maybe they should. Maybe there should be a better protocol or system for that. But yeah, because they don't really participate in podcasts in the same way everyone else does, they can create all of these lovely gifts. I don't really buy. So the algorithm thing, I think that could be done elsewhere. I don't think that's got anything to do with RSS. I think that possibly podcast listening apps just, well, for one, they don't have the same kind of funding that YouTube does. But yeah, no, I think that could be better. That could be improved, and it should be, and that's something the podcast app should do a better job of. That's a problem that can be solved, and it's an experience that can be better than it is just now. But yeah, everything to do with sort of community building and communication and like comments and likes and dislikes and all of the little things that YouTube does that does make it quite a rich platform. Yeah, that's not necessarily available to podcast apps without pretty much going down the same road as YouTube, or Spotify's probably the better example, who do use RSS but have built a layer on top of it with their own things that can't be carried off anywhere else. So, I mean, that is, I'm not sure that that's something that can be overcome. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with it. I don't like it, but I do agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube does reward podcasters more than podcast apps do.
My precious. All right, let's take a wee look then. All right, here's one. If you don't have 5+ hours a week, don't start.
I'm going to say 100% disagree, because I've seen podcasters do a lot with less than that. I have seen podcasters do maybe an hour or two a week, and get out something great. There's a someone who uses Salitude who I interviewed once, and her name was Elizabeth, and she runs a podcast about marketing, and it's done really well for her. It's a 20-minute podcast, comes out every week, and it's these kind of little bites, really nice distilled knowledge. And she spends about an hour every week doing it, and it works for her. It works for listeners. So no, I don't know. Not to say that a 20-minute podcast in that sort of format is for everyone, but I don't think you need 5 hours. I don't think there's a lot of people that have 5 hours to spare over a week. That's quite a lot. Unless you're young, don't have kids, and are married, that's a lot of time to summon. So no, I disagree. 100% disagree. I think that's a limiting belief that would stop people who could otherwise run a great podcast, have a lot of fun with it, and succeed with it. Yeah, I think that's BS. What do you think?
Yeah, I would disagree too. Yeah, I think you could definitely cut it from 5 hours. I think there obviously is a certain point where, and I don't know what exactly that number would be, less than 2 hours, I would say, unless you have run a podcast before, then you might be struggling. Like if this is your first ever show and you only have 2 hours, then, even if you are prepared for the first couple of months to give yourself more hours, however you manage that, you might struggle a wee bit. But after you find your feet, yeah, you can begin to not cut corners in a negative way, but you begin to see, where you might be wasting time or where you just might become a bit more efficient. And I don't necessarily think that the length of the podcast, I mean, it does play a part to an extent, but I don't necessarily think shorter episodes mean less work. There's that classic quote that was attributed to Mark Twain about, I'm sorry about the long letter, I didn't have time to write a short one. And sometimes the act of being very succinct will take you longer. So, yeah, I certainly don't think you should worry about not having 5 hours. But if you're just starting out and you don't have 2 hours, not saying you won't be able to do it, but you might need some extra time up front to get it off the ground. So
yeah, definitely. Over Easter break or Christmas, or book a couple of days off or something. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to need more time starting out, as with everything. I think that's probably more realistic for people, right? Carving out some like one-off time, maybe set aside, do a little bit less gym this week or a little bit less that, or something. Yeah, but I agree. I do agree with that. It's not that there isn't a minimum threshold. It's just that 5 hours feels way too high. Like, I think probably like 2 hours, and no matter what, you're gonna probably spend a bit of time. I mean, when you start any hobby or new business or activity, there's always time up front. So, I mean, that's not different to anything else. There will be extra time up front, but on an ongoing basis, something that you can kind of commit to in your regular life. Yeah, 2 hours feels like probably the realistic floor, unless you're doing a very short format episode that doesn't need any editing, and you don't need to plan out very much, which seems not very realistic. But more power to you. If
we're not going to get into fart of the day again, are we?
Oh God, no!
But yeah, something like quote of the day, thought of the day type thing that you've just got a list of these planned out, and
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Right, I've got one. But it's actually, I don't think it's a great agree or disagree kind of thing, because I think it's quite obviously agree. Maybe I'm being biased, but I think there's an interesting conversation to be had in there. I'd quite like your take on it. And it's, your podcast idea isn't unique. I think that's quite probably. I mean, you can make it unique. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just assuming here. Maybe I think that that's true. I think that there's very, very few podcasts ideas that are going to be completely unique. You can drill down and you can add layers that make it unique, but I think like the topic, the core thing, yes, you're a unique human being, therefore technically it's probably unique in some way. But like, yeah, I think most ground has been trodden already, and you can put unique sort of spins on things. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree that your topic probably isn't unique, but I guess a podcast it's the topic and it's the presenter, and you're unique because you're you and nobody else is you.
Mm-hmm.
So although someone could have the same broad topic as you and niche down to the same target audience as you, they can't also be you. So maybe and this happens in podcasts, and some people just resonate with the presenter and some people don't. So maybe there's two shows doing the exact same thing, but some people really like this presenter, some people really like that one. And maybe even the presenter folks aren't so keen on, there might be somebody who, like, that topic is absolutely nailed down them, but like they like another presenter better, even though the topic is kind of orbiting that area. Mm-hmm. So they choose to listen to them. So yeah, there's those two factors, isn't there? It's not just about the topic, it's very much about the presenter too.
That's so true. I'm going to take the slightly more cynical side to that and say that there's been quite a few times that I've found what seems like the perfect podcast, and I've listened to an episode and I've just said to myself, I wish you weren't such a dick.
And that's why you don't listen to Podcraft.
But it's true. It's like, it's exactly what I'm looking for, but I just cannot bring myself to. I'm not going to be too mean. I don't vibe with the presenter. Do you know what I mean? With the host, there's something about them. I'm not going to sit and listen to you for hours. You're not right for me. But yeah, no, okay, yeah, totally, 100%. That is very true. I was being a little bit reductive on that. So, yeah.
Okay, here's one, and it kind of is in a similar vein to something we discussed last week. And it's, if you're not getting feedback, your podcast isn't memorable.
I feel like, unfortunately, that's probably true. I think that's probably true. I think if you resonate with people tend to have a habit of trying to reach out to you. They want to have some sort of involvement with you. They want to they want to be seen and heard and get involved with what it is that you're doing in some small way. But caveat to that is that that's still only a subset of people that really resonated with what you're doing that will do that. So I don't think that actually happens until a certain scale. But I do think that is true. I think it would be really strange if you've got like 1,000 listeners to every episode and no one gets in touch with you. There's something going on there. It might be that you haven't put any contact details in your show notes. That might be it. But it might also be that what you've created is quite a transactional relationship. And I don't think it's not really got anything to do with talent, I guess. But there's something off there. There's something that you need to hone in a bit. What do you think?
Yeah, good points. I am going to disagree with the statement because, and you've touched on this, some podcasters just make it difficult, if not impossible, to get in touch with them. Anecdotally, in the past, I've heard stuff that I've really liked, and I have, I've not spent a day trying to like get in touch, but I've maybe had 5 minutes and thought, I'll fire them a quick email or that, and just can't find their email, can't find the contact form. And I'm not going to spend all day tracking it down, so I just don't get in touch. So yeah, there's definitely that caveat of like, well, A, do you ask for feedback because you might be serving up something that's great, and just because you're not asking the question at the end, and it shouldn't even be the question of give me feedback, it should be specific questions. We discussed this today. Do you agree or disagree with this point? Or a proper question you're asking of your listeners, rather than just get in touch or give us feedback. So if you're asking the question and then you direct them to a place that's agnostic of any platform as well, so your website.com/contact, some sort of link where they could find various ways on their own terms to get in touch. Again, I've tried to get in touch with people before, and I've seen a link, join us in our Facebook community, and I think, well, I've not got a Facebook, I can't do that, and that's the only way that they're giving me, so I just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot that, again, this kind of ties into last week's discussion on growth. This is so under your control, and a lot of podcasters sadly just don't pay attention to it. They're not asking for it, they're not making it easy, and then they wonder why they don't hear from their audience, and it's because they've not optimized the experience, I guess.
Yeah, very good points.
I reckon that'll do us for this week. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I guess if you are spending 5 hours a week on your podcast, could there be any software out there that might ease that down to a couple hours or less?
I think there could be. Perhaps you should consider Ella2.com, where you can record, edit, and publish your podcast in as little as 30 minutes. You can do pretty much everything you want to do in there. You can let Ella2 deal with all the kind of tricky audio editing bits, making you sound as good as possible on whatever hardware you have. And all you really need to do is drag and drop your clips in, let Ella2 get to work, top and tail, click some buttons if you want to remove silences and breath noises and all these kind of things. And coming very, very, very soon, just as easily as editing your audio, you'll be able to record and edit your video and have a nice edited video out the other end. So if you're on the fence about trying YouTube to get a little bit more exposure, but don't really want to commit too much more time to it, then Ella2 is probably the best way to do that without doing any extra work. It's alitu.com. Sign up for a free trial, use the code Podcraft, and get 50% off your first month.